Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
First, though, Game of Thrones returns to our screens tomorrow night. But if you're a fan of seeing power-hungry political factions locked in a vicious battle to be next in line to lead, you really only have to read the papers this morning. Senior cabinet ministers kicking lumps out of each other in anonymous briefings. Well, we're joined now in the studio by the Home Office Minister, Sarah Newton, and we will come to some of that manoeuvring in your party in a bit. But first, it feels right that we start off with the really serious issues of acid attacks, because we have seen a spate of these attacks in recent weeks. What is the government going to do about it?
You're right, it's really very worrying, and for those victims of these attacks, it's absolutely shocking. These are life-changing injuries. So I've been concerned about this. In the Home Office, we've been concerned about this for some time. We've been working very closely with our colleagues in policing to build up a picture of what is going on so that we can take a really comprehensive series of actions to really tackle this terrible issue.
And what are the actions then? Because that's what people want to know about,
Absolutely.
don't they?
Well, it starts really with understanding why on earth anyone would use acid or corrosive materials as an offensive weapon, and then right the way through to what needs to be done in the criminal justice system to make sure the sentencing regime is absolutely right and sends out a very powerful message. So it's a whole series of things, so looking at access to the materials in the first place. You know, is there more we can do? There is a regime, the Poisons Act, but what more can we do there? Making sure that police officers, understand the powers they've got so that they can do their best to apprehend people. So it's a whole series of measures.
So I feel like I'm still not hearing that many specifics on what you're actually going to do here. Will you need a licence, for example, to go and buy the kind of acid that can dissolve someone's nose in a matter of seconds?
Yeah, already there is a regime for that, but the problem here is, Sophie...
So is that no or yes?
Yeah, no, it is. We are looking at the regime and we are looking to see what more we can do. We have to remember that a lot of the...
So will you need a licence then to buy the...
Yeah, I am just about to answer that question. You do now. There is a licensing regime, but as I was saying, the problem is a lot of the chemicals that are being used are under your sink, are in your bathroom. These are readily available. So we're working with retailers and manufacturers. So manufacturers, can we reduce the strength of some of the cleaning materials? With retailers, should we be asking for, say, age verification checks for younger people? How practical would that be? How can we introduce those measures? So examining every step of the process to see what more we can do.
So that's something that's on the table then, is it?
Yes.
The age verification,
Yes.
if you're going to go and buy, for example, some bleach.
These are all the things that we're currently working at to make sure we can practically implement these changes. Yes, they are.
Do you think that manufacturers are doing enough to try and make sure that these substances are as safe as they can be?
Well, we've brought people to the table. We had a summit in the Home Office just recently with our National Police Chief Council lead, with the retailers, with manufacturers, making sure where every part of the process people are doing what they can to really bear down on this.
So we're going to be hearing more about this tomorrow. You're going to be giving a statement in the House of Commons. Yeah. I just want to show you some statistics that we've got as well. Now, these show the pretty clear increase in the number of acid attacks that have happened. This is not something that has just happened overnight. Why has it taken so long for the government to act?
I don't think it has taken a long time at all. We've been working on this for some time, and one attack is one too many, but as you can see, they're relatively rare, and there has been an uptick in the recent past, and they affect so many different types of people. So they're used in so-called honour-based violence, domestic abuse, they're used by gangs. It's a complicated picture. So what we have been doing is working very closely with the police forces. They've been giving us a lot of voluntary data. We've been working with the NHS as well, because not everybody who's affected will actually go to the police, especially if it's related to gangs. So actually building up a picture there. So we need to understand the motivation, we need to understand which chemicals they're using, so we can take the evidence-based, comprehensive measures I know everybody wants us to take.
You see, I'll be honest here. You say that you've taken action before, but at the same time, it still feels as though when it comes to the specific things, you're just having conversations, you're having debates about what can happen. So it doesn't feel as though you have got that much concrete action if the upsurge started actually a few years ago.
Well, it's not a new crime. Unfortunately, tragically, this has been a crime since Victorian times. It is something we've kept under review. We do have really good measures. Police can stop and search. There are possession offences. Most people get convicted for very serious offences, grievous bodily harm. You can have up to a life sentence. So we have been taking all this action over the while, but clearly, as that data shows, data that we've got from police forces, there has been an uptick, and it's starting to be used in different types of criminal activity with some different motivation. So we're constantly reviewing and updating our intelligence, constantly seeing what more we can do.
So are you going to be pushing the courts then to apply more life sentences to these kind of crimes?
We're definitely doing a review of sentencing and definitely involved with the CPS to make sure that people understand the powers they've got, understand the measures that can be in place, and making sure that those penalties truly reflect the severity of the injuries. These are a life sentence for some people, and I quite understand when victims say that they feel the perpetrators themselves should have a life sentence. Victims are at the heart of everything we're doing, and making sure that they're getting proper access to the ongoing psychological help as well as their physical care for their injuries. We're very determined to do everything we can to understand the issue and do everything we can to prevent it from happening.
Okay. Now, to move on to a slightly different topic, do you think public sector workers are overpaid?
I certainly don't think people working hard in our public services on modest incomes are overpaid at all. They do incredibly important jobs, from cleaning our streets to being care workers to being, emergency services. And we know they've had a really tough time as we've had to deal with the legacy of the enormous debt and the economic mess that we inherited in 2010. It's been tough on public sector workers as they've had their wages capped, and we know people are getting weary and tired of having, to live with those pay caps. So this is why, the government's listening to the public sector pay review bodies, and we'll listen very carefully to see what more we can do about increasing public sector pay, particularly those people on modest incomes.
The reason I'm asking the question, as you probably tweaked, is that the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, allegedly told a cabinet meeting that public sector workers are overpaid when you take pensions into account. Now, he hasn't denied it this morning. He just said he doesn't want to comment on cabinet meeting, doesn't want to comment on what happens in cabinet. Is he wrong then to allegedly have said these comments?
I think the key word there is allegedly.
Well, 5 sources, according to the Sunday Times.
I don't comment
and he
on
hasn't denied
tittle, tattle or leaks or anything like that. I think, we're all united in wanting to do two things, really. We've still got to manage the economy well. We must have a strong economy, and that means that we do have to be very careful about public expenditure, but equally wanting to give people in the public sector, a decent wage. But what we've been very clear about is we must protect people's jobs. Ever since the recession, in 2010, we've been able to protect jobs because people have made those sacrifices in the public sector, because they have had their wages capped. And we have got record levels of people in employment in our country, and I'm sure we'd all agree it's better for people to be employed than unemployed. And you've only got to look across Europe where they didn't take this responsible position. And yes, perhaps their wages have gone up more, but look at the levels of unemployment, particularly amongst young people. It's terrible. Is
there a bit of an issue, though, when these leaks are happening around the Chancellor? It's not the first time that alleged comments he's made have been leaked to the press. Some reportedly sexist things he said about female train drivers were also leaked. I mean, this is not the vision of a united cabinet. It really sounds as though someone's got it in for the Chancellor.
Well, I don't think anybody should be leaking cabinet meetings at all. I think that's thoroughly unprofessional. But look, what I observe every day in Parliament as I go about my business is a very united team of ministers behind the Prime Minister. Is that really what you observe? It's absolutely what I observe, absolutely focused on what our constituents want us to be focused on.
So why are all these leaks happening then? Because you'll forgive my incredulity.
Who knows? What these are all hearsay, What I see every day is people working with determination on the issues that our constituents expect us to be focused on. The economy, making a success of Brexit, tackling these awful issues like we've been talking about this morning. This is what we're determined to do.
If people are trying to take down Philip Hammond because they see him as a potential leadership contender, is it time for Theresa May to stand down so that at least these battles can be done in an actual contest?
It is absolutely not the time for the Prime Minister to stand down. She has the full support of the parliamentary party. It's in the national interest that we all get on, make a success of Brexit, build a stronger economy, build that fairer society that everyone wants to see.
OK, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
This morning.
Thank you.